So let's start with our presentation. Again, my name is Elaine Thompson. I work here at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, but most of the schools here in the City University of New York, especially for graduate international students, we have very similar requirements and we have very similar processes. So the information that I'm giving you is generic and can be applied to most of our graduate programs. So the application process. Most of our application processes are online, and it can be completed for the most part online. Our applications do call for an application fee of $125. Some schools may provide application fees for certain populations of students. That's one of those things that you'll have to check with each individual program to see if they offer an application fee and what their criteria is. Here at John Jay College, I can tell you we offer application fee waivers to any John Jay alumni, so any students who already have a John Jay degree or who will be graduating with the John Jay degree. And we also offer application fee waivers to any U.S. veterans or active service members. So that's our criteria. Other schools may have different criteria and different populations that they give application fee waivers to. So you want to check in with your individual school. We all will require all previous college transcripts. So college transcripts includes university transcripts. We'll use those terms interchangeably in the United States for some of you who may not be familiar with graduate schools in the United States. We use university and college sort of interchangeably. So when I say college, I mean university transcripts as well. So any college or universities that you've attended, so we'll require all transcripts be sent from your school directly to our school. We will also require professional evaluations of those academic credentials. That will be different. That requirement for a professional evaluation, that will be different at every school. So for example, here at John Jay College, if you graduated from any school outside of the United States or Canada, we require a professional evaluation of your academic credentials. However, at another school, and I don't know this to be the case, I'm just giving an example, at Queens College may not require a professional evaluation for international students. So again, that's one of those things that if you're trying to get into a program at City College or at Hunter College, you'll have to contact that individual admissions office to see if that school requires transcripts and evaluations. So again, at John Jay College, we do require professional evaluations of your academic credentials if you attended a school outside of the U.S. or Canada. If your transcripts are in another language other than English, will also require those transcripts be translated to English. So that's yet another requirement that students may need if they have been educated abroad. The personal statement. Students will need to provide us with a personal statement. The personal statement is an essay. It should be 1 to 2 pages, typed, and this is a college writing sample as well. This is not in the true sense a writing sample, but some schools will look at the personal statement and they want to see that you have your grammar correct, your sentence structure is in the right way. So you want to make certain this personal statement is not just thrown together. The personal statement also should say why you want to come to this school and this program. That's what your personal statement is. So this is not the time to write about your summer vacation or anything like that. The personal statement really is why you want to come to that program and that school. What are your plans with the degree that you get? We also will require 2 to 3 letters of recommendation. Now, letters of recommendation, some people will call them letters of reference. They're used interchangeably in the United States. However, it's important to note that in your graduate application, you should provide, if at all possible, academic letters of recommendation. So, some programs will require 2 letters of recommendation, some will require 3. Some will require academic letters of recommendation, but if you've been out of school for a long time and are a professional in a certain field, some programs may take a professional letter of recommendation. So again, that's one of those things where if you go to a school's website, they usually will stipulate whether they are looking for academic letters or whether you can swap those academic letters out for professional letters if you've been out of school for say 10 years and are returning to school like to change your career or something like that. I know John Jay, we do that very thing. So if you are looking to come into, say, for example, our Masters in Public Administration program, and you happen to be a public administrator in your country, and you've been a public administrator in your country for 10 years, well, it may be very difficult for you to get an academic letter of recommendation. Here at John Jay, we will take professional letters of recommendation. I see that someone had a specific question about where you take evaluations from. So every school will be different. But for the most part, every school will accept a WES evaluation from World Education Services. And then after that, you really need to visit a college's website to see if they have specifics on which companies they will accept and which companies they won't accept. I am not in any way selling you on World Education Services, but World Education Services is widely known and widely accepted all over the world. Here at John Jay College, our information about which evaluations that we accept can be found on our website. So undergraduate admissions, international students don't have to figure it out on their own. There are 3 companies that we accept professional evaluations from. One is ECE. I'm sorry, I don't know what the acronym stands for. And one is SpanTran. So those are the 3 that here at John Jay we accept. But every college will tell you which ones they accept. If you have a resume or a curriculum vitae, which is called in some countries, you should provide that in your application process. Some programs will require writing sample. Many English programs, for example, will ask for a writing sample. Now, there's a difference between the writing sample and the personal statement. The personal statement was 1 to 2 pages. The writing sample should be 5 to 7 pages, sometimes more. It should be an academic paper that you've done. It could have been done while you were in school. It could have been an academic paper you submitted for journal publishing, something like that. And that's what they're looking for when they ask you for a writing sample. They want to see how you write. You should have something with a bibliography on the back, a works cited page. Make sure that this is an academic writing sample. Some schools also require standardized exams, the GRE exam, the GMAT exam. If you were educated in a school outside of an English-speaking country, they may require TOEFL or IELTS. So international students will more than likely be familiar with TOEFL and IELTS scores. But the GRE is a standardized test that some programs require, some don't. And it doesn't just go by school. So for example, I'm going to give you an example of John Jay. At John Jay, we have programs that require GRE scores and some programs that do not. And you'll have to contact us to see which ones require GREs and which do not. For example, our criminal justice program, just because that's in our name, John Jay College of Criminal Justice, our criminal justice program does not require GREs. But if you want to come to John Jay College for our forensic science program or our forensic psychology program, they do require GREs. Most of our PhD programs, which are housed at the CUNY Graduate Center, require GREs. But again, you'll have to check program by program to make sure yours do not require GREs, or if they do. Now we're going to move on to the next slide, which is the I-20 process. Some of this will be applicable to some of you because some of you will need the I-20 process, and some of you are on permanent visas or temporary visas and really have no intention of moving over to the I-20 process. But I'm going to go through this process so that if this is you and you need this, you'll know what to do during this process. So first of all, a student has to be admitted to a school to start the I-20 process. So once you go through the whole admissions process and you've received your letter that says, congratulations, you're admitted to said graduate program or PhD program, then you'll probably be contacted by the school about your immigration status. But if not, you should reach out to your school to find out who processes their I-20 applications. You'll need to submit an I-20 application. The I-20 is a document that certifies that you've both been admitted and that you've shown the school sufficient proof that you can afford to study and live in the United States. So that's required in order for you to get a visa at the consulate to come into the United States. So in order to go to the school, you'll be showing the I-20 application that the school has. You'll need to show proof that you can afford to study at that school. And this proof will be different at different schools. But for the most part, you should be prepared to show a school these documents. You will need to show bank statements. Bank statements from you if you're saying you're planning to provide some of your funding. Bank statements from any sponsors that may be promising you money to take care of your schooling expenses and living expenses. You may also be required to show proof that someone is providing you with free room and board in the United States. So if you have family in the United States and someone has said, you could live here for free while you're in school, that has a value. And so during the I-20 process, you can show information to your school that shows, yes, I have this free place to live, and that information also goes on to your I-20. If a student is in the United States already at a school and they are already on an I-20, you still need to show proof that you have financial ability to pay for school, but there's an added step to this process. You'll need to show the school that you've been in the United States on an I-20, that you've been admitted to another school and that they need to send your CVIS record to the new school. So you'll do what's called a transfer of your I-20 process if you're currently in the U.S. At another school on an I-20. If you're in the United States in a different status, and you will need to file what's called a change of status in the United States to become an F1 student, then you'll need to provide additional information to the school's designated school official, or DSO, to see how to go about getting a change of status. So a change of status is, for example, I'm in the United States. I'm here with my father who's working. My father is working for a company. He's on what's called an H-1B visa. I'm his child. I have an H-4. But now that I'm going to be in school on my own as an adult, I'd like to change to an F-1. So I need to change my status from H-4 to an F-1 student. I would go to the DSO, provide them with all the information for the I-20, and most schools have an International Student Services Office that will help you file a change of status so that you can remain in the United States, fill out an application with immigration to change from whatever that status is over to an F-1 student. We do not recommend that B1, B2 students, that is a visitor in the United States, we don't recommend that you try to come in as a visitor and then change your status. It's very difficult at this time to change your status from B1, B2 visitor to F1 student. So that's not something we recommend. We recommend that if you're back at home, as a matter of fact, I mentioned that in the next slide, so I'm actually going to move to the next slide as well. So if you're at home and you're trying to take care of your business here to be admitted, we recommend you stay home. There is no process during the application process that you need to be in the United States for. We've all designed our application process with some ease and with the idea in mind that we want to make some of this a little easier for international students. So you will be able to submit everything online, submit your application. You can contact your schools and have everything mailed here. Even if you need to get an evaluation done, evaluation companies are aware that students are abroad. They allow you to mail your documents in, and they will actually send us the evaluation directly from the evaluation company directly to the school. So there is nothing that you actually would need to be in the United States for during the application process. So that's why we recommend that all students, if you are abroad and you're trying to come in on a student visa, we recommend that you try to complete the entire process while you're at home. We keep in mind that international students will need their visa. They need to do certain things, and it can take some time back at the U.S. consulate. We are aware of that, and we try to get your admissions and I-20 process done to give you enough time to get your visa and come back into the U.S. In time to make certain that you're here for you're here for classes. And if there's a requirement that you be here before classes, we also give you enough time for that. The change of status applications can also take several months. This is one of the reasons why we don't recommend B1, B2 visitors try to change their status in the United States, because the process takes so long and it's so unpredictable that you may not be able to start school the next semester just because you filed a change of status with the immigration service. You're not allowed to study in the United States while on a B1, B2 visitor visa. So that means most students who come in that way, you're sitting there and waiting for immigration to change your status before you can start school. And so, again, we've designed our application processes, many of us, so to keep in mind that international students have a long way to do this, and so we try to make it as easy as possible for you. But again, B1, B2 visitor visas or visitors in the United States are the only people that we would recommend not do this. If you're in the United States on any other visa, an A visa, which is a diplomatic visa, an H visa, which is a work visa, any type of dependent of any of those visas. If you're here on an L visa, an E visa, I know I'm naming different things, but some people in our audience may have different statuses. So I want you to know that if you have a J status and you want to change your status to F1, that's certainly a possibility in the United States. So to wrap things up before we go into our question and answer session, I'm just going to try to tie this all in a bow here, and just let you know, every school has its own application process. Some of the things I've gone over today will go across schools. So yes, we all have an application fee. We all require transcripts. We all will require letters of recommendation. But there are also differences in the application processes. So some schools may require evaluations of your academic credentials. Some schools may not require professional evaluations. Some programs may require writing samples. Some programs do not require writing samples. Some programs will require standardized exams like GREs or GMATs. Some will definitely not. All of our schools will require that if you were educated in a non-English speaking school, most schools require that you take a TOEFL or IELTS exam. Other schools may accept other exams similar to the IELTS and TOEFL. Again, that's one of those things where you check with the school to see if they will accept those test scores. And usually they'll get back to you and let you know, yes, we do, or no, we don't. During the I-20 process, we know that you want to get to that as soon as possible. So as soon as you're admitted, you want to reach out to the school and ask about the I-20 process so that they can get you in touch with the designated school official so that they can make certain to get on that as soon as possible. I thank you very much for joining us for this session on graduate international students. And if you have any questions that we haven't gotten to, please feel free to contact Again, if you have any questions about any of this, my email address will be on the screen at the end. And we're going to go into our question and answer session right now. So I'm just taking a look at some of the questions that some of you have written. And again, you'll see my contact information on the screen in case we don't get to your question or you didn't want to ask a question here on the forum or what have you. You can always email me directly, or if you have a generic question about one of our programs in CUNY, not just John Jay or not just, me personally, you want to ask, you can always send an email to the graduate admissions mailbox. So I'm just going to look at the questions that you asked a little earlier to see if I can provide you with some of those questions. So let's see. I see what institution is authorized to do professional evaluations for international students. So I think I went over that during the presentation. Most institutions will take a World Education Services evaluation, but other than that, you should really check on the individual school's website to see what evaluations they take. And I also went over a few of those that exist out there that John Jay College takes. So let's see, what else can I answer during the question and answer? I'm going to try to get to as many questions as I can. So if I answered it, I'm just going to go over it roughly. Let's see. If you're trying to check on the status of an application at a specific school, you should contact that specific school. So again, if you filed an application with John Jay, after this session is over, feel free to email me. I'll get back to you on the status of your application. If you've filed an application with the Graduate Center, you want to send an email to the Graduate Center. And the same goes with City College, Hunter, Baruch. Whatever college you're directly checking on the status of an application, you have to go directly to the college. Let's see. So someone is asking if they have 8.5 years of experience, do they still need the GRE for the PhD programs? So I have to tell you that if the PhD that you're looking into requires GREs, they require GREs. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. There are some master's programs that will waive GREs for people who've been working professionally in the field for a while. For example, John Jay will soon be starting a human rights degree. They will waive the GRE requirement for anyone who has 7 or more years experience in the human rights field. The same goes for our International Crime and Justice program. So that too will be specific to program. I don't know if the PhD programs will do that though. You'll have to contact the Graduate Center. Let's see. The student is trying to figure out whether they have to take IELTS. So the student was educated in the British system. So you mentioned the certificates that you have, but not where you got it. So your question said you got O levels and A levels. There are many countries that offer O levels and A levels. And when you say under the British Council, but that's not saying where you studied. So, for example, if you went to school in England, England only educates in English. And their language of instruction is English. You won't need to take the IELTS or TOEFL if you went to school in England. If you went to school in Canada, where English is the first language, Ontario, for example, Vancouver, for example, they instruct in English. Their first language is English. You won't need IELTS. But if you were instructed in a country It doesn't matter what credentials you have. In a country whose language is not English, whose first language is not English, they likely will require that you complete IELTS or TOEFL. Again, you can check specifically with the schools you wish to attend, but generally that will be the rule on IELTS and TOEFL. So there's a question about how important one's GPA is. It is very important. Most of our graduate programs have a requirement that students have at least a 3.0 GPA, or what is equivalent in the United States to a 3.0 GPA. That is really not movable on most graduate programs. Here at John Jay, we do have some programs who will look at students who have a GPA of less than 3.0 if they have significant experience in the field. And so John Jay does that. I cannot tell you that every school will consider that. Generally, we will all say 3.0 or above, but each specific program has faculty that may put importance on different things. So you want to check with that school and the program specifically that you're trying to get into to see if they have a very strict 3.0 GPA. Some schools may list they have a 2.9 GPA or 2.8 GPA for certain programs. So you want to check with that specific school on that question. So let's go on now. What about the fellowship process? So if a school offers scholarships and fellowships that are merit-based, usually you only need to apply to the school, submit your academic credentials, submit your GREs, and if they have merit-based scholarships that are given out upon admissions, you'll be applying for those scholarships. But colleges also offer outside scholarships and specific fellowships to a department. You want to check with each program and each school to see how they give out their fellowships, how they give out their scholarships. John Jay doesn't have very many scholarships, and we don't have any fellowships. We have scholarships that we give upon admissions. But when I say a few, I really do mean a few. So we may give out 10 scholarships here at John Jay, and they're never fully covering a student. The Graduate Center does have some PhD programs where they're fully sponsored. And so you want to check with each individual school to find out, do you give out money to international students? What do I have to do to get that scholarship, and how do I qualify? Let's see. How much money should you have in the bank? So that's I'm sure that question is referring to the I-20 process, and I'll tell you, every school has different amounts. Every program has different amounts. So you need to check on that school's with that school's DSO to see what the requirement is of how much students need to be sponsored every year in order to get an I-20. So that's not something that I can answer generally in this session, because every program and every school will have a different amount that they want students to show for the I-20 process. The next question, can a family member based in the U.S. pay for my application fee? You put $120, the application fee is $125, so I don't want you to mess that up. But absolutely, a family member in the U.S. can pay the application fee. You can also go to a bank that has a U.S. branch in your country. You go to that bank and tell them you would like to purchase a bank check in U.S. dollars for $125. You can also purchase a bank check from a bank in your country in U.S. currency, and you can pay the application fee that way, or what have you. So for what duration is the F1 visa applicable? So I assume you mean how long they're going to give you the F1 visa. So let me answer that in two ways. There's two processes involved during the F1 visa process. You have to first get the I-20, and then you have to get the F1 student visa. The I-20 will be issued for the duration of the program. So it depends on which program you're in. If you're in a program that's for 2 years, that takes approximately 2 years to finish, you'll get a 2-year I-20. If you're in a PhD program, most PhD programs are 60 plus credits. That's about 5 to 6 years. So you get a 5 to 6 year I-20. That's the I-20. The visa is different. The visa is issued by the U.S. consulate in another country. And that visa will differ depending on what country you're from. And also, it depends on the program, the person at the consulate. As we know, they can be very fickle. So at this time, I'm going to just let you know that our contact information is on the screen.